Welcome back to The Survival Historian, where we uncover the raw reality of human endurance in history's darkest hours. Today, we descend into the abyss, into a world of crushing pressure, suffocating darkness, and relentless terror. Imagine being trapped miles beneath the ocean's surface in a steel coffin, hunted by an enemy you cannot see, knowing that every ping echoing through the hull could be the last sound you ever hear. This is the story of U-boat crews during World War II, sailors who faced not only the enemy above, but the psychological demons within, developing desperate, often ingenious tactics to survive when death seemed inevitable. This is submarine terror. The life of a U-boat crewman was a descent into a metallic hell. Picture a cylinder barely 50 feet across and 200 feet long, packed with 40 to 50 men, torpedoes, fuel, provisions and machinery. There was no privacy, no escape, no room to breathe. Sailors slept in shifts, hot bunking in these narrow berths that were honestly still warm from the previous occupant. The air, well, it grew thick with diesel fumes, human sweat, and the acrid smell of unwashed bodies. Fresh water was rationed so severely that washing became a luxury, really, reserved only for emergencies. The humidity condensed on every cold metal surface, dripping constantly and soaking, well, everything in this sort of perpetual dampness that bred mold and disease. But, the physical discomfort was nothing compared to the psychological weight. Every creak of the hull under pressure, every groan of metal adjusting to depth, sent hearts racing. Was that sound normal, or was it perhaps the very first whisper of structural failure? The ocean at depth is never silent. It speaks in mysterious pings, clicks and rumbles, any of which could be biological, geological, or, well, the opening notes of your death. The men lived in a state of constant vigilance, nerves stretched taut like steel cables about to snap. They were sealed in a tomb that could become real at any moment, separated from crushing oblivion by mere centimeters of welded steel. The most terrifying sound in a submariner's world was the active sonar ping, that hollow metallic echo reverberating through the pressure hull like a hammer striking an anvil. It meant a destroyer had found you, that the hunter was closing in for the kill. Aboard the U-boat, the lighting would switch to dim red, and all unnecessary systems would shut down immediately. The order, "Alarm! Dive! Dive!" would send men scrambling to their stations as the boat angled sharply downward, diving planes biting into the water, seeking the safety of the depths. But there was no true safety, only temporary reprieve. As the U-boat descended, passing 100 meters, then 200, the crew would initiate silent running protocols. Electric motors would slow to their quietest setting, producing barely enough thrust to maintain depth control. Gyroscopes were shut off. Conversation ceased entirely, reduced to hand signals and whispered commands. Men moved in slow motion, avoiding any contact with the hull that might transmit sound into the water. Some crews removed their boots, padding around in socks on the metal deck plates. The toilet couldn't be flushed. Cooking stopped. Even breathing became conscious and controlled, as if the hunters above might somehow hear an exhale. The crew became phantoms in their own vessel, disappearing into the background noise of the ocean itself, praying that their acoustic signature would blend with the natural sounds of the sea. Every man knew that hydrophones could detect a dropped wrench from kilometers away, that their lives depended on absolute silence and discipline. Then came the depth charges, the weapons designed specifically to crush submarines like tin cans. The first explosions were distant, muffled thumps that caused the hull to shudder slightly, but the escorts would adjust, walking their patterns closer, tightening the noose. When a depth charge detonated near the boat, the experience was beyond description. The entire vessel would lurch sideways, men thrown from their feet, equipment ripped from mountings. The lights would flicker or die completely, plunging the compartments into absolute darkness, broken only by emergency torches. The sound was not heard so much as felt, a massive concussion that seemed to compress your chest, squeeze your organs, rattle your bones from the inside. Cork insulation would rain down from the overhead, glass instruments would shatter, pipes would rupture, sending high-pressure steam or seawater spraying into compartments. If the batteries cracked, chlorine gas would begin to hiss out, a deadly invisible killer that burned lungs and eyes. Damage control parties would rush through the chaos with patching materials, stuffing leaks with mattresses, wooden wedges, anything to slow the flooding. A single depth charge rarely sank a U-boat outright unless it detonated within meters of the hull, but escorts didn't drop single charges. They dropped patterns of 5, 10, even 20 explosives, hour after hour, systematically covering the estimated position of the submarine. The cumulative effect was, well, just devastating. Welds would crack, hull plates would distort, seams would begin to weep, then stream, then gush seawater under crushing pressure. The U-boat would grow heavier as flooding progressed, requiring constant adjustments to maintain depth, burning precious battery power that couldn't be recharged while submerged. The mental strain of these attacks was perhaps more destructive than the physical damage. Claustrophobia, already an ever-present companion in the confined spaces, became overwhelming when under attack. Men who had served for months without issue would suddenly break, screaming to surface, to open the hatches, to escape the steel coffin. Some would claw at the hull as if they could tear through it with their bare hands. Others would retreat into catatonic silence, staring at nothing, just completely unreachable. The commanders faced impossible decisions in these moments. Push deeper, beyond the boat's rated depth, hoping the attackers' charges were set too shallow. Risk the hull imploding from pressure, or stay at current depth and endure the barrage. Change course during the explosions when the noise would mask the sound of the propellers, hoping to slip away before sonar contact was re-established. Every choice carried mortal consequences. Some attacks lasted 8, 10, even 12 hours. The crew would sit in darkness, breathing stale air that grew progressively more poisonous as carbon dioxide built up, waiting for either the attack to end or the hull to fail. Time in these conditions became strangely distorted. Minutes could feel like hours. The boundary between waking and sleeping, well, it blurred completely. Some men actually reported hallucinations, seeing their loved ones or imagining they were back on land. The primal survival instinct warred with the rational mind's understanding that there was, quite literally, nowhere to run. Eventually, if they survived, the sounds of the hunters would fade. The propeller noise would diminish, moving away to search elsewhere. The crew would wait, sometimes for hours more, ensuring it wasn't a ruse. Then, carefully, the commander would order the boat to periscope depth. The periscope would break the surface, sweeping the horizon for threats. If the sea appeared clear, the boat would surface, hatches would crack open, and sweet fresh air would pour into the fetid interior. But surfacing brought its own dangers. U-boats were vulnerable on the surface, especially later in the war, when Allied aircraft prowled constantly. The brief respite might end in seconds with the cry of "Aircraft, dive, dive," sending them back into the depths. And even when they escaped, the memories remained, etched into the psyche of every man who survived. 3 out of every 4 U-boat sailors never came home, the highest casualty rate of any service in the war. The desperate evasion tactics of U-boat crews remind us that survival often demands more than physical endurance. It requires psychological resilience, tactical creativity, and an unbreakable will to outlast impossible odds. These men fought not just the enemy, but the ocean itself, and the crushing weight of their own fear. Their story is a testament to human adaptability in the face of terror, a reminder that even in the darkest depths, the instinct to survive burns bright. If this journey into history's harshest trials has moved you, hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to The Survival Historian. Together we'll continue exploring how courage and endurance shaped our past and how those lessons can guide our future.